Monday morning, you walk in, conference room with your staff and partners, and they tell you, get the fuck out and don't come back.
Everything up to that moment, 10 years into my career, a little over 10 years sober, and the way that I got sober was through do this or don't do this. In that, what it did and what it does for so many people is it allows us to get a little bit deep into the reasons that we use drugs and we drank or we numbed out the way that we did. Ego is so protective, isn't it? I had this sense of inferiority inside of me, so never feeling good enough as a human being, but also then, and again, unconsciously in so many ways, but seeing the world and thinking the only way to protect myself is to overcompensate with confidence, ego, with intelligence, with being smarter than, with those around me. Loneliness is a motherfucker. I walked in to my path of healing, feeling like the loneliest human on the face of the earth. And in that moment, I once again felt like there's no way another human being understands.
So, Chris.
Hey, Ron.
2 years into being CEO of your own program, Monday morning, you walk in, conference room, with your staff and partners, some of which you've known since you were a child.
Yep.
And they tell you, get the fuck out and don't come back. This is a decade into working in behavioral health, working your way to that position, going back to your hometown to start this program and running it for 2 years as CEO. What the fuck went wrong? How does that happen?
Cutting right to the heart of it, which I love in episode 1. I think about everything up to that moment, 10 years into my career, a little over 10 years sober. And the way that I got sober was through a program that in many ways is very black and white. Do this or don't do this. Take this next right action or don't do this. And I think in that, what it did and what it does for so many people is it allows us to get a little bit deep into the reasons that we use drugs and we drank or we numbed out the way that we did. But what it also did was it allowed me to build this beautiful life in so many ways, in relationships and stability and, building companies and finding successes and all of this. But what it did was it avoided going deeper into the issues that really brought me there in the first place. And so what happened is that I avoided dealing with such deep underlying pain that I brought to that moment. And then I had brought to those 2 years before, and then I had brought to the 30 plus years in my life. And what that really was for me in so many ways was the inability to work with others, being a terrible team player. A lot of that comes from childhood and really the inability to trust. Having grown up in an environment where I felt like the only person I could trust was me, and establishing this life of disconnection from other people, disconnection between my head and my heart, living very heady in so many ways. And the real deep wound there was really not being worthy of having deep, intimate bonds and relationships with other human beings. And not being good enough.
So, I mean, it sounds like you weren't prepared to take on that role.
No, I was completely inept. To be a leader at that point.
So how does that happen? After spending, like I said, a decade working in this field, starting other businesses, right. How do you go into that next phase completely unprepared?
Ego. Ego is so protective, isn't it? I had this sense of inferiority inside of me, right? So never feeling good enough as a human being, but also then, and again, unconsciously in so many ways, but seeing the world and thinking the only way to protect myself is to overcompensate with confidence, with ego, with intelligence, with being smarter than, with being better than those around me, right? And so that was really kind of the coping mechanism as a sober man. Prior to that, right, it was, prior to getting sober, it was let me act out, right? So let me be the loudest guy in the room, let me be the guy that will get into a fight, let me be the one that will hit you before you hit me, because I'm so terrified that you're going to hit me that I'm going to have to become much bigger than I am.
Something
make my presence so much bigger. And so I can look at that like before getting sober and see like it was the exact same behavior. It just manifested in a completely different way, which was using the ego to overcompensate. And so how did I get there? Was just this persistence of saying, I'm smarter than, I'm better than, I'm going to make this happen against all odds.
Yeah.
Basically to prove to the world, and really prove to complicated relationships in particular from childhood, that I am worthy of your love, right? So if I do this thing, if I start this business, if I start this program, you're going to see that I'm really worthy of your love.
Dude, did nobody along the way say anything, right? That couldn't have just manifested as soon as you took over as CEO. Did no one along the way in business, in this industry, say, hey, Chris, tone it down, or maybe this isn't going to work?
There were definitely people in my life, and some are still around, which I consider them deep friends, and they'll know who they are when they listen to this, that would hold me accountable, that would point things out. However, I do believe that ultimately it takes some intrinsic desire to not only be able to hear it, but also to make the connection. So when I said my head and my heart were so disconnected, I could hear, no, man, this behavior is not getting me what I want.
Yeah.
But I was so disconnected from what was actually going on inside of me that I could sit and like talk about it all day long.
Right.
But there were so many defenses and protections built from so many years of dealing with, dealing with trauma and other circumstances in life, that I was basically in a certain way, like dissociated from it. So there were definitely people that held me accountable. The other side of that was I absolutely had a lack of mentorship. However, I struggle to blame that on anybody. So I do think that there's a piece where you have to be in a position to be mentored.
Right.
Right. Which I don't know if I was.
Well, I think it's hard to blame somebody for not being there.
Sure.
Right. So yeah, this industry, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. And there were people that I did reach out to early in my career and said, look, let me work with you. Let me train under you. Let me learn from you, all of this. And there was a real pushback, right? So there was definitely an element of where what I did experience when I reached out was people saying no, which I think then just kind of reinforced this idea that I had for so many years, was like, oh yeah, like I know it's only about me being able to do this. Right. Nobody's going to show up. No one's going to help me. And so again, like, was I in a place to be mentored? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right. Was I in a place to hear some of these things? No.
Yeah. So you walk in Monday morning, office, your friends, colleagues, partners, they tell you, get the fuck out of here. Don't come back. Essentially kicking you out of your company that you built. This was a dream of yours. That had to have been devastating.
It was heartbreaking. Yeah. And today, what I can say as a company we built, that's one of the biggest differences today versus then, was we built a company. Right? My partners and I, the employees and I, we collectively as a team built something. I couldn't see it and I couldn't recognize it at that point because I had so much ego tied up in it was my idea and I raised the money and this and that, and I couldn't get away from that idea.
Right.
And so today, I easily say this was something that we built. But in that moment, I still believed this was something I built, something I was being kicked out of, was my company, not being asked to leave our company. And so, yes,
what was the fallout from that?
Yes, it was heartbreaking. It was devastating. I'm not sure that I have ever felt something like that before. However, when I reflect, even in this moment, I will say I felt that many times before, which is again why I had such a strong sense of unworthiness in my life, was being told you're not good enough. So in that moment, it just brought everything back to the surface. You're not good enough. You're inadequate. You're not worthy. You're literally being told to leave something that you feel so responsible for having built. Right. The fallout from that, which is the universe is really unique, and I don't believe in coincidence in any way, is that then began a complete implosion and collapse of my entire life. Right. So if we think about like kind of seeds being like sown in the dirt, it was literally like relationships fell apart. I had, again, a parent die that I had an extremely complicated relationship with. And especially this was a parent that in many ways had told me that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't good enough. And so the death of that parent coinciding with such a massive failure created a lot of complicated feelings inside of me as well, because I really want to do is be successful. So that person would give me a hug and say like, I'm proud of you and I love you. And
now
you've done it. Now they're gone. So loss of relationship, loss of business, loss of friendships. I had some of these relationships in the business for 20 years at that point. That fractured. And so all these pieces of what I had created as my identity were gone. So I'm not the entrepreneur anymore. I'm not the CEO anymore. I don't have the company anymore. I don't have these friendships. I don't have a long-standing relationship. Loss of parent, right? All of that basically happened within a 6-month period. And so what it did was implode life. So that was really the fallout, was that moment of the business was kind of the beginning of these kind of exponential moments of pain that the universe was like, hey man, like you've been living this way this long, like we're going to tell you that this doesn't fucking work and you're going to start to pay attention, because we're going to literally give you so much pain that you're going to have to pay attention to it.
And that must have been a pretty lonely place, I imagine, to be there looking at your failure in front of you, not having some of those relationships, not having some of those friendships, not having that, other relationship in your life anymore, and just kind of staring at the pieces of it all. There had to have been some sort of thought of second guessing everything at that point, second guessing everything, let alone the career path that you've taken and this idea of dedicating your life to behavioral health. There had to have been some thought of maybe this isn't it.
Loneliness is a motherfucker. Those of us that are in recovery in some way, right, whatever that recovery is, understands what loneliness really is. And I walked in to my path of healing feeling like the loneliest human on the face of the earth. And in that moment, I once again felt like there's no way another human being understands what I'm going through right now. Some of that, again, is just being disconnected. It's being hyper independent, which I've really had to take a look at, that like hyper independence is actually not a good thing. The ability to not have to function in relationship is something I've really had to take a look at, and being okay with that relationship. And so when I look at that, it's yes, it's literally all of your identity has been stripped away, and sitting there 10 years sober and saying, like, how did it get here? Right? I didn't use, I didn't drink, I didn't numb my feelings in any way. I didn't do any old behaviors. And that was a weird thing too. I remember asking a friend of mine who's a clinician, and, again, such a trusted ally. I said, like, why don't I want to go to Vegas and gamble for the next 3 months and just go out and try to be with as many women as I can and all of this. And she looked at me dead in the eye and she said, Chris, because that's not you.
Yeah.
Those are memories of who you used to be, but that's not you. And so, yes, at that moment, I just was like a sad puppy, right? Just looking, as you said, at the broken life in front of me saying, how on God's earth did I get here?
Right. And so coming out of that, I imagine was a long, difficult path.
Hell of a journey.
Where do you start? And then how do you get to where you are today? Like, it seems like things worked out. How?
Well, they always do, right? So that's the thing. I have such a profound respect for pain and suffering because I now know that every moment in my life that has been the most painful experience that I've ever gone through at that time has turned out to be the most profound moment of growth and change. And so to give a little bit of context, that was in 2019. We're sitting here, it's 2025, the end of 2025.
Yep.
So it has been a little while. And, those old things continue to kick in. So I'm a runner, right? So I avoid, and so my natural inclination was to run. And I literally did. I got on a plane. I went to Indonesia. I was in many ways fortunate enough to have a little bit of money at the time. And I went to Indonesia.
Yeah.
And I experienced crippling depression for the first time in my life. I used to say that I understood depression from using drugs and like the depression that comes alongside of that, which is different, but true, sober, non-numbing, cannot answer the phone, cannot eat,
Son of a bitch,
cannot respond to a text. Like all I could do was get on a plane and disappear. And the amazing thing is, we know this, like we take ourselves wherever we go. So it didn't really matter. I was still depressed over in Hong Kong. I was still depressed in Indonesia. However, it began this journey of introspection, right? So it began the journey of slowing down. It began, and slowing down for me was one of the biggest moments, and I continue to come back to it even today, that most of the problems exist in my life when I'm going 1,000,000 miles an hour, which again, I operate very well on the extremes. I operate really well at doing 0 or really well at going 100.
Right.
I don't do well in the middle, right? And so what happened was I began to slow down, and it wasn't by choice. It was literally being invited into a yoga studio, sitting down, breathing, hearing some things and going, whoa, like, breathe, be in the body, these different things. And so part of my journey, again, like I was trying to avoid by running away, like literally leaving everything behind.
Right.
But then I began to find, all right, slow down, feel, think, be with. And so that really began the journey was this opportunity to start slowing down and really start to look at how, again, back to that question, how did I get here? Right. And that was this like paramount question throughout everything was, I'm 10 years sober. I've had some success. I have failed. I've done a lot, but like I'm of service. I'm a part of the recovery community. I give back. Like all these things. I was like, how can you do all this and yet still all fall apart? That was the question I had to answer. And that's where we started this podcast. Was the thing I had to really understand was so much of the pain that I brought forth from childhood, I had completely avoided. And so I basically was able to become so routine based. I do this when I wake up, I do this, right? And so I had to start to unpack and unwind how all of these things were safety. So I created this like little bubble of safety in my own life. And when it fell apart was, okay, now that you don't have any of that, how do you create safety? And so part of really the short of it was, again, it was meditation, it was breath work, it was learning to connect with my body that then led into practices of therapy for the first time. So one thing I uncovered a little later in this journey was that I had so much trauma related to therapy from being forced in to see therapists and doctors and psychiatrists at such a young age. And whether anybody told me this or not, what I heard was, you're broken, you're fucked up, something's wrong with you. And so anytime someone would suggest...
So going to therapy seemed like it was reinforcing this idea that you were broken.
Yeah, and I would fight at all costs.
Yeah, so somebody would say, oh, you should try therapy. And you're like, oh, you're saying I'm broken.
And I would literally like say, fuck you.
Yeah.
And get super reactive and defensive. And a friend of mine said, she said, you know, you're one of the only people that I know that works in this field, that believes so deeply in the work that we do, that believes in the healing properties of therapy and body work and all of these different things, but you yourself refuse to do any of it.
What a trip.
So it wasn't until later in the journey that I realized, and again, this was in therapy, how much trauma I had related to therapy. But that then unlocked where I began to do somatic experiencing to really understand how this stuff was in my body, to doing some more traditional therapies, doing relationship work. And so it really just started to unlock, right, all of these things. And I became so willing to say, I don't want to continue to live this way and continue to show up this way. And really what the next piece in that is that for a year, right, so like 2019 into late 2021, I stayed single. I didn't date. I didn't go out and like try to change the way I feel. I was meditating every day. I was like, man, like I've dialed this in. And it wasn't until, and you know this well, it wasn't until getting in relationship, which is the mirror, right? It's like, I can be like the most spiritually minded, grounded, you know, person in the world.
Right.
Until a relationship comes.
It's like I'm the best singer in the shower, you know? Yeah.
100%. And so this relationship, which has been, I mean, the most profound and impactful relationship of my life, it started to show that, yes, you've begun the work, but boy, do you have so much more to do.
Yeah.
And so much of what I had to do was learn how to be in relationship with other human beings, which I had just never learned.
Yeah.
I was 39 years old at the time.
Whew. Man. So it sounds like this experience that you had walking into that conference room and being told to leave was devastating, and it had you kind of reevaluate where you were and some of the things that weren't working, one of which you concluded was your inability to work well with others, some ego stuff, some relationship stuff. And then coming out of that was maybe a dedication to work on those internally yourself. Now, how are you utilizing that moving forward?
Well, it's interesting again, because it's we talk about it.
Well, because you're CEO
again.
I
know.
So like, is there a thought in the back of your head that you're gonna walk in one Monday morning and your partners are gonna be like, "Hey, Chris, get the fuck out again," or are you at a place now where you know you've set things up differently?
Well, I changed. I mean, and so I am a believer that people change and people can change, and it takes a lot of persistence, a lot of commitment and dedication, and the willingness to really push the limits of comfort in particular, and to really go to some dark places to get there. I don't have that fear anymore. A lot of what I did not have back then was self-awareness. You know, so from a leadership perspective, it's how can we lead others if we're not aware of ourselves,
right?
And how we show up in the world and how people perceive us, right? Because ultimately, like, relationship in so many ways is how you perceive me. And so it doesn't mean I don't have boundaries and things like that, but I have to look at, right, all of these things. And so for me, what happened was I never thought I would be a CEO again. I was very clear about that.
Right. I remember.
Yeah. I didn't really know what my skills were. I tried for years to think, how do I get out of this industry? I was so beaten down and so in so many ways broken from those experiences that I just never thought I could come back into the industry.
Yeah.
However, what happened, and what I would say is it was natural to be patient. It was the first time I've ever been that way. The two companies I had started prior to where we're sitting now with Ava Health, where I had an idea, I thought it was a good idea. I checked it out with other people. I went ahead and made that happen.
Right.
Right. Whereas I sat back, and I think due to the fact of saying, well, if I'm not a CEO, then who am I? And so I played with different things within that 5 years. It's like, am I a marketer? Am I a chief marketing officer?
Right.
Am I a consultant? Am I an investor? Right? Like I played, and you were along for a lot of this too. Like I played in a lot of these spaces because I had so much emotion built up around, and really shame. I mean, shame, 100% around like being a CEO again. And I think because I had that, it gave me this patience to sit back and to continue to do the next right thing, continue step forward, grow, a lot of self-introspection, a lot of work on self, a lot of work in relationship. And then there was a moment that presented itself. And even in that moment, I'll never forget sitting in a room in Denver with David and Ian, and someone said, who would be the CEO of this company? And I looked around the room.
Wow.
And Ian and David both looked at me like dumbfounded and said, Chris is the CEO. And I went like, oh, you're right. Like that is what I do. Like that is my role in this world and in this field.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until that moment that then something went, oh yeah, like you've got to be able to reconnect with the strength and the power and what makes you you. Because the reality is I came out of the womb in so many ways as a leader.
Yeah.
People have followed. And so like I'm a born and bred in so many ways CEO, but it wasn't until the people around me actually said this that it clicked. And
The light kind of went off.
Oh yeah.
And it was from that, previous several years of trying other hats on and not diving back directly immediately into the CEO and trying to make something work. You were actually looking for other avenues, which gave you some patience and some time for the right moment with the right people and the right opportunity to kind of rekindle and spark that, hey, I am a CEO.
Yeah.
I am a leader.
Well, and so many things happened in those years. One of them was just like looking back and thinking, what would I really need to be successful? And I started to look at what were my skills. What am I good at and what am I not good at? And then thinking like, if I ever do something again, these are the pieces that I need around me, right? I need a sophisticated operator who knows systems and processes and how to do that. And I need sophisticated finance operations, and I need people that help stay organized. And like I just looked and was like, these are not things I'm great at. So in order to do something again, entrepreneurial, I have to have these pieces. And those are what started to kind of come together naturally around me. And I said, oh, okay, like now it seems like the moment is right to be able to move forward. But again, I don't believe that moment would have happened if I didn't do the internal work and wasn't consistently doing the internal work and still doing the internal work and still every single day saying, I fucked that up. Why am I continuing to do that? I need to continue to evaluate and to look at why these behaviors continue to happen or why this continues to happen. And so it was really, I think, like this process of growth happening constantly internally and in relationship with starting to finally come back to, oh yeah, you are a leader, you are a CEO. And then there was just a moment where all of that came together and it was like, okay, now's the time. Like I'm going to capitalize on this.
Yeah. And it seems like maybe, this devastating experience of being kicked out of your company where you were trying to drag others along.
Oh yeah.
Right? It seemed like that kind of sparked this whole journey to where you are today in recognizing that a company isn't a one-man show. It really is the sum of all of its parts and pieces. And the best companies are well-oiled machines with great pieces who are in the right place as experts in what they're experts in.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, the field we're in, behavioral health, right? 70% of our expense are people, right? So I always say to other companies, especially in the years I was consulting, when they'd say, well, how do we like cut expenses and how do we do this? And it's like, you can look at a profit and loss statement and say, well, you can cut some expenses here and there, but it's not going to fix the problem, right? You have to either make more money or you've got to fire staff.
Right.
And so when we look at behavioral health businesses, they're people businesses.
Yeah.
People make these businesses, not only in the fact that we're providing direct care to people that are struggling, but they're teams.
Yeah.
Right. So from somebody, and again, I can think back, I never forget in 8th grade that I wasn't chosen to play on an elite lacrosse team. And I was devastated. And my coach, who delivered it straight, said, "You're a fucking terrible teammate." Like, that's why you're not playing.
Yeah.
Like, you are capable, right, of being a starter on this team. You're not going to be on it because you're a terrible fucking teammate. Again, how many times did I hear these things long before seeing them and actually recognizing them and doing something about them? I was hearing them when I was a 12-year-old kid.
Right.
These are teams, right? So we talk often about, like, when you look at what makes successful teams, it is that ability for people to come together, right, who have differing skill sets in whatever it is. And the magic happens when it all comes together. And that's so much of what I've learned is I can't be all things. I have to allow people to do what they do really well. You have to have trust. You have to have mutual respect. You have to have shared vision and values. And you have to live those on a daily basis. And when we don't live up to those, we have to be accountable to come back and say, I'm not just acknowledging this, but I will change the behavior. And so, yes, that idea of team for the first time in life at 40 years old, in many ways, is so relevant to what we've built and what we will continue to do. Is how do we operate as a complete unit with a single shared outcome?
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And here we are today.
I know. Episode 1, sitting at Crossroads, beautiful podcast studio. It's true. And diving straight in, right?
Yeah.
There's so much that we as human beings and in humanity in 2025 are bringing to the table, and how much chaos and confusion and beauty and humanity's in a real interesting point right now. And there's so many incredible people bringing magical, creative, innovative solutions, whether it's to their own life or to the world of business or just to the world as a whole. And it's an honor to just consider the opportunity to sit and have conversations with, other human beings that are gathering the sparks of possibility around here. You know what I mean? Like, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting endeavor. This was great. Great episode 1. We'll be looking forward to continuing doing this and continuing to expand on our other forms of media as well. So
that's right.
Chris, appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. You guys, thanks for watching. We are Brokenish. We are a podcast. We are here. And we are bringing you hard truths,
real conversations,
and sparks of possibility
from a world
that's a little
broken-ish. Thanks for tuning in.
Like, comment, subscribe.
See you guys next time.